Here we go. All right. Good evening, everybody. So the agenda for tonight is to give you some key reminders for the assignment 2. And here, that's a key to survival parsing function, and I'll show you what it is. Then the steps to use the pipeline, and of course, your questions. But some reminders is this. Please, 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 do not upgrade your IBM Cloud account, because this cannot be undone. Once you enter the credit card number, your account is not going to be an academic account and they're going to start charging you. So please don't do this, okay? Then when you exit, oh, and I have it written twice, but when you exit, you want to always stop the runtime environment. You don't want it to consume hours. Here, this is also important. In the past, we had a student who would try to ask the homework questions to MBM representatives. So don't do this, please. Do not put any tickets. They don't know what your homework is, and they're not going to help you with troubleshooting errors, okay? Then for both part of the assignment, you want to upload the data prior to actually creating the notebook, okay? Now, there are a couple things in the code that are very important, because you're going to be running the first part is the given code, right? You're going to be doing for the Titanic data. The second part is when you have to write the code. But in order to just to make sure that you first understand what the Titanic code is doing, right? So basically, the high-level steps is here. You want to define something like something called the label document, where you have a row as person ID, person info, and label, right? In the Titanic data. And what is person info? It's P class, age, and sex, right? And label is 1.0 if the passenger survived, and 0.0 if the passenger died. Then we defined the custom parsing function, parse document, right? What it will do is it will take one line at a time from the RDD and return the label document, right? So what you'll do is you write the code to apply that function, right? And then you're going to load the parse data to the RDD, right? But we'll look in the code in more details. Here is the code for the parsing function for the Titanic data, right? So important part is this. This will help you. You want to list all columns in your data, and you're gonna do it column name and the position number, right? So for example, the first column is a name and it starts from position 0. Column 1 is a P class, column 2 is age, and etc. You're gonna list it like this, right? So in here, label document sees as person ID, right? Which is what? Position number 5. Person info is what? You take a concatenation of what's in position number 1, 2, and 3, right? This is here, it's gonna be the text value. This is how it's built. And then it's a label. Label is if the person survived or died. So here is a logic for the label, right? If this one values of 4, it means that this is the 4th position in the line. If values of 4 is greater than 0, which is the 1, right? Then it's survived 1.0. Oh, and this one survived is 0, it means died. Okay? And this function returns the label document. This is very important. I believe I have something in the chat. Okay. Why concatenate the class? Okay. This is an excellent question. Why concatenate? Because this has to do with how the algorithm works. It takes in 3 things. It takes in the label document. It takes in the first parameter is the person ID, which is a unique identifier. Then it's gonna take the concatenated string of your independent variables, because you're gonna pass it through the pipeline, right? And this is the input that you have to take. We take a delimited list, right? And then you're gonna, the last argument in here this is gonna be this is a concatenation, and the last one is gonna be the target that you're predicting. So this is how it takes. The pipeline has to take the label document. You build the data frame from this. Okay, because here on the next page here, I have the stages of the pipeline. So first you have to split the data into training set and test set. So you have, in this case, I'm doing 80% and 20%, right? You can do 70 or 30 if you like, on the part two if you like, but you have to explain why. Now, here are the steps. This is what I'm taking. I'm taking the tokenizer is gonna take person info. Person info is a concatenated list, and it's gonna output the words. So basically the tokenizer takes the person info and it splits it, right? And it's gonna add the words column to the data frame. Well, one reason they want to do it because sometimes it will look at the most frequent combination and it may throw them out, so to speak, right? Then you have a hashing function that converts the new word into the feature vectors, and then it's going through the pipeline. Logistic regression fit method is going to produce the model. I hope I explained it. Let me know if I'm not. Because basically that's an algorithm and it takes this as an input. You have to specify the delimited list of input columns and output, right? It will output the words. And in fact, when you actually run the code in your assignment, right, I didn't want to show the answer, but when you run the output, you will see what each word looks like, okay? But the key thing is here, some people make a mistake, big mistake. They take this code verbatim as is, without any changes, and attempt to plug in to the data set in part two. It's not, this is not how it's gonna work. The reason is because you have different variables, right? They're in different position. The number of variables is different. If you copy it like this, you might be predicting a totally different variables. It means that all your analyses are going to be wrong, right? Everything will be wrong. So then you're gonna look at, yes, let me see. Okay. Okay, does delimit it have to be a space? Well, in here, in this case, yes, it is a space. It is a space because that's how it's parsing them. Okay, what is a two-word value? What do you mean by two-word value? Oh, by the way, look at this. There is also, yes, it's gonna be it's gonna be delimited by the space. But what do you mean by two-word value? Well, we would have to look at specific example how it looks like. Okay. Yelinesh, did you see the question?
Yeah, I think the two-word value, what means by that is there's only like two fields. So for example, if there's values one and values two only. Okay. I hope I understood this right, but this is how I'm kind of interpreting
Yes.
this question.
Oh, but Matt, for the name field, we are ignoring it because look at it. Look at the code that calls actually that function, right? It drops the name field. We are dropping the name field, right? If you look at the code, it has a filter function right before that. So the thing is being dropped. Sometimes you might need a field that multiple words as a value. Well, that's right. Then you would probably want to add extra code. If this is the case, you probably want to add extra code to your parsing function. Like, for example, you may want to replace the spaces with an underscore, something like this. If this is the case, then you would need to add extra code to the parsing function. Right, Linesh?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah. So then, but in this specific example, it's not the case, right? In this example that you're assigned, it's not the case. But in general, yes, if you had values with two words, then you could write the extra code to replace perhaps the space with an underscore. Oh, okay, no problem, no problem. No problem, yes. Yes, you can remove real spaces, yes. But that's another reason why you are asked to do some visualizations for your data. So that way you can see what values are in there and their frequencies, right? Now, one thing to keep in mind here, the visualizations that you do for this data, right, made when you do the low birth weight data, you might have to take some different steps. The visualizations could be different, right? And the reason is you want to look at, well, honestly, when you visualize the distribution of the target variable, it's gonna tell you a lot about the data. Okay, it's gonna tell you a lot about the data, right? So you want to look at if the dependent variable is balanced or imbalanced. You want to look for that. It's important. Okay, Helena, could you please review what the 4 represents? Okay, in the original parsing function. Okay, number 4 represents the position of the variable in the list. So the position, the variable at position 4 is survived. So basically, what the function is taking one data row, right? It's taking one row. And the row consists of the elements. The first element is going to be, the element 0 is going to be name. Element 1 is a P class. Element 2 is age. Element 3 is sex. Element 4 is survived. And element 5 is person ID. So values of 4 is going to be the fourth element in a row, right? Which is survived because the numbering starts from 0. So values of 4, so we're looking if the survived is greater than 0, or if survived is 1, we want to code it as 1.0, and or 0, 0.0, right? So basically, it's trying to say, then we created the local variable survive, and we set it either to 1.0 or 0.0. And that's going to be the dependent variable. Let me know if I address the question. Because Jesus, when we refer to here, for instance, values of 5, this is the person ID. Text value is a concatenation of values 1, right, which is a P class. Values 2, it's age, and values 3 is a sex, right? So we take the string here, right? And this one is the person ID. So in your data, in the part 2, it's going to be totally different because you have different number of variables. You have the variables at different position. But before you write the code, I recommend that you list like this. This list will really help you to determine what goes where. But the most common mistake that people make here is that put things in the wrong position. You need to determine which variable is a target, which position is it at, right? Because if you get this function incorrectly, all your analysis will be incorrect. And everything in part 2 will be incorrect. So this is critical. Okay, I'm not sure.
So basically, it's taking reading each row and putting it in a string array, right? So that's pretty much it is doing. So when you see your CSV file, it is delimited with commas, and that's exactly what it is doing. If you see the values, the very first statement there, it is converting that into a string array, and then it is reading that array called values. It is reading different parts of that array, which starts from 0. So when you are taking in your, for the assignment, when you take the CSV file, look at the fields, how they are placed and what are they, right? And then you will be able to, parse them correctly.
Yeah, this is the key. After that, if you get it right, everything just flows, right? And another thing is you are asked to do is discuss what other methods you could use. So basically, you would want to explain, yes. Okay, I'm glad it helped, yes. I'm glad it helped, but thank you, Linus, too, because there is more than one way to see it, more than one way to explain it, yeah. But for the, basically, what else you need to do is you need to discuss. You're not asked to implement other methods, but you're asked to discuss. Suppose which method do you think would work for this data and why? Okay, So this is a binary classification example. So you may want to look at your readings, which other methods could be used for binary classification, right? And even if it's multi-label classification, like decision tree, maybe it will work in this scenario. So, I mean, if you have a good argument for it, go for it, right? No right or wrong answer. But the analysis is important, and this part is important. It's important to make sure that you get this function right, because if you get it wrong, you might end up running into errors and syntax errors. Also, one important thing to keep in mind is the two type of the RDD operators, because sometimes the command that actually has a problem is not the one that actually returns the error. Because your problem could be in the parsing function, but you don't get to see the error until the actual print statement later on. It's because of the, you don't see the error until the action commands execute, right? So the line that actually returns the error might not be the line that actually causes problem, right? So just keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is this: when you got your notebook working, please, please, please download the HTML file right away. Because if you happen to run out of hours by the time you're done with part 2, hopefully it's not the case, but you won't be able to download the HTML file. You won't be able to open the notebook. I'm not exactly sure what the number of hours is, but at some point you might see the warning. So, well, I would recommend try to make sure that you have at least like 10 hours remaining, because that's what you'll need for the next assignment at least. Okay. So make sure that you have at least 10 hours remaining. Unless somebody asks that question about hours in the other session, session 9040. This is what's gonna happen. Your next assignment, you will need the hours also, but RStudio, it takes less than Spark. So basically what will happen is you'll be using the DB2 and R, integrated RStudio environment. 10 hours you will be good for the next assignment. Then you have assignment 3 where you also use DB2 and R environment. If you happen to run out of hours, DB2 does not take hours. So what you'll do is you will work on the DB2 part of the assignment in March and then do the R part in April, because in April, or maybe in fact on March 31st, you'll see the hours go back to 50, because there is a little, what do you call this, time difference. So sometimes in the evening of 31st, you're gonna see your hours going back to 50. All right, so you will have hours for assignment 3, but the concern is you want to make sure you have hours left to do the SA tutorial assignment, okay? So 10 hours should be plenty, but yeah. Watch out the hours, pay close attention. All right? So everybody knows here how to stop the runtime, right? And very important, make sure that yeah, let me see the question here. Yes, okay, good, good. So now, another thing is I'm gonna assume that everyone here knows how to count until 3, right? Because the assignment deliverable is 3 files. So that's another mistake sometimes people make. They forget to submit the HTML file. Then it's a problem, right? It says that the instructor will not be able to grade your submission if you don't turn in the HTML file. So just remember that, make sure that you attach all files before you click on submit, okay? Because, well, this is serious. I mean, that's one reason in the past people had a problem with this assignment. It's because they forgot to attach the HTML files. It's because they were not careful with stopping the runtime environment, right? Then some people did not do as well as they wanted to because of the parsing function. If you get it wrong, that all of your predictions are gonna be wrong. All results are gonna be wrong. So that's a big problem, right? Yeah. Another thing is part 3, you want to do it in your own words. So do not answer questions by copy and paste from the web. This is no go, okay? This is no go. I mean, we all know that we should not do it, but once in a while, people run out of time because they start the work late and they do it. So don't do it. And hopefully, all of you started working on a part 2. Just get it done. Just get at least this hand-on part done and start with the write-up as soon as possible. Because if you wait on this, if you wait for part 2 until the last minute, you're gonna get stuck. Never wait for it, right? So Linish can confirm, right, Linish? Linish?
Yep, absolutely.
Because you did the Spark assignment too. There was a different data, slightly different code, but you did it too.
Right. Yep, I remember.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, let me see if we have questions, because this is, guys, this is an opportunity for you to ask questions, because what we don't want to happen is this. You're stuck, right? Nobody, it could be, for instance, somebody, you're stuck and you have not asked any questions, and then suddenly after the work is due, you tell the instructor that you run into technical difficulties. Well, that's a problem, because you needed to contact the TA before the work is due. You have to report the issues before. We cannot go and do it after the work is due, right? We have to do it before, right? So, but yes, please make sure that this function makes sense, because you need to edit this. So hint, this part you need to edit for the low birth weight data. Then look at the distribution of the dependent variable, right? Because that's gonna tell you something too. All right. I would like to see your questions. Have you started with part 2? So, I mean, to make this session more effective, hopefully all of you are actively working on assignment, right? Were there any issues with adding data to the project? No? Because, well, when you download the data, you need to upload it to the file before you actually create a notebook, because that's a key thing, right?
A couple of important other reminders. One is, just watch out for the execution flow, right? I mean, that's the key, because, and what I mean by that is, if whatever the statement you're executing, if it is dependent on, or it's having a reference to a particular variable, and if that variable is not defined earlier, that statement is not going to execute, right? It's going to run into an error. So always make sure that you understand the execution flow. You have the variables defined prior to using them in your future statements. That's one. Number two is, let's say you're running this notebook, right? And you took a break, or for whatever reason, you lose connectivity. You have to restart from the top again. Do not assume that because you left it right in the middle of the notebook and you come back, and although you've lost connectivity, you can still keep continuing it, because whatever you've done is lost, right? The runtime has lost all those variables, or all this, that execution is gone. So you'll have to start the notebook you'll have to start running it again from the top.
Yeah. And all cells have to be run in sequential order, because I believe, well, at least I might have heard that there was one reason for deduction on last assignment, is that if the cells were not run in sequential order, so please make sure that everything runs in sequential order, and you send the clean output. So basically, try to make sure that there are no errors. You want to show the output cells should be started labeling starts from 1, right? Just do a clean run to restart the kernel, clear output, and run it from the top. And make sure that everything is in sequential order, okay? Just to avoid the penalties. Then the credentials should be put in the notebook only once, and where you're instructed to put, okay? Because, well, I heard a couple people lost points in the last assignment because of not running the cells in a sequential order. This is very important, like Linish mentioned. Like at the very top cell, you have the libraries that need to be included, right? Or if those libraries are not there, your function calls are not gonna work. So make sure that all cells are being run, starting from the very top. All right. Every time you start the new session, you just want to make sure that you run from the top, okay? And in the worst case scenario, suppose that you did not get the code to work. It's better to turn in the notebook with error than to turn in nothing. Because if you turn in with the error, it depending on where the error is, right? You might get partial. Depends on instructor, how instructor is grading, but I'm sure that you might get partial, but if you don't turn in anything, that's worse. Okay? Not turning in anything is worse. It just from experience, okay? Well, it will be up to instructor, the details, but I'm just telling, not turning in anything, it's worse than turning in something and honest explanation that it did not work and what you have tried to make it work. This is much better when you, yeah. But you still want to make sure, you aim to make sure it runs without errors, and also it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, right? Make sure that includes what it's supposed to include, right? Because running without error does not mean that I can go ahead and delete everything and turn in an empty notebook. No, empty, well, you know what I mean, right? Nope, it has to have the required elements and it has to be correct, right? And the instructor would know how to check. So let me see, what is the question? Just to follow up regarding logic, does Spark automatically detect which element number 0 to X is assigned due to, well, but the thing is on here, it's a parsing function. Here, in this specific scenario, you need to, it's because you're adding some logic to it. So you have to explicitly refer to an element at a given position. And you are passing one line at a time. That's the thing. Well, here, it's not that manually reassigning data set, but you're adding a little bit of logic to it. You have to put it in a certain format. Linesh, let me know if I'm getting the question correctly.
No, that's correct. I think
Yes.
the question, if I understand it,
Yes.
is this, and how do you define it? And as I mentioned
Right.
earlier, look at the values, that particular statement
Right.
actually reading that entire row. So it all depends on how that row is defined in your CSV file. And the entire row is the way that string array is read. The string array starts from 0. So each field, it starts from the left and it goes all the way to the right. And you have to just, count how many fields are there. So let's say if you had 10 columns in your CSV file, it will go from 0 to 9.
It's in here.
Hope that addresses your question, Kostov.
Yeah, see this, it's calling it here. See this, it's gonna filter out the name and then it's gonna call the parse document. That's what it's doing. Let me see.
There's a question from Matt. I think you probably missed that question from Matt on the write-up.
Oh, the write-up questions. Okay, how much details are you looking for each question? Well, you want to make sure that the question is answered. You want to make sure that the question is answered. Like you need to discuss the metrics, right? Well, the question has to be answered basically. If it takes one sentence or if it takes 2 sentences, well, the depth is basically, you want to analyze it. You're not gonna say something like, oh, I think naive Bayes method is gonna work. but you have to explain why do you think it's going to work, right? For instance, you probably want to talk about the assumption of independence. Why do you think it's going to be applicable to that data, etc.? Something like
Matt,
that.
if I were you at this point, at this stage in the degree or in the courses that you've done, you really want an in-depth response, right? I mean, that's what's going to be. I mean, maybe you would explain that in a couple of sentences. Maybe that would answer the question. But it's always good to kind of just explain why, right? So always go for it. At this stage. You definitely ask to kind of go beyond because as Professor Elena and Gopati and Ozan kind of explained earlier, what is expected. If you just do that, it will give you a B. If you need to go beyond B, or if you're looking for A or A plus, I'm sorry, A, then it definitely needs something more. And that in-depth responses is what's going to fetch you that and a higher grade.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Because basically, B means that you did the assignment. You turn in both output files. Well, you kind of answered the questions. You may have missed few things here and there, but you got most of it. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yes, of course. Yes. I mean, I was a graduate student also at UMUC, so. Well, basically, B is like basically you just turn in the work, you turn in the working version of the assignments. So there might be some errors here and there, but for the most part, you got it what was asked. But for Renee, it's more like more analysis. That's what they're looking for. And like you really have done some research. You take in the readings, for instance, if you look at this week reading, there is a section on how you could improve the accuracy of logistic regression. So you may want to apply some of that to your discussion, things like that. Yeah, because if you could see, here is my results, and this is what it says in the book. This is how this applies to my results. Well, things like that. It's gonna, well, no guarantee, but more likely it will add value to your paper. Okay. Well, or perhaps that, well, for instance, you build a model, right? And the accuracy is low, then you explain why it's low. Well, and what could you do to improve? Things like that. But if the accuracy is low, it does not mean that the grade is going to be low. But it's all it has to do is if it's done correctly or in the analysis and all of that. That's important factor. But I mean, by this time, you probably see how the evaluation works because you had 2 assignments returned already, right? You had feedback for 2 assignments already. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to bring up is that make sure that the email address that is in Leo is the one that you actually check, because we had a couple of people in session 9040 where instructor is trying to get a hold of them and they're not responding to email, which is not good. So to get assistance faster and more efficient, make sure that you are checking your email, okay? Just a reminder. Right, Udesh? Udesh?
Well, yep.
Yeah, well, I'm saying we had a couple of people in session 9040 who would not respond to email.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing is that hopefully we're not gonna see the surprise. Nobody's account is gonna suddenly expire, right? So hopefully everybody's got their code fixed. Hopefully. Because we had a person in 9040 who did not have it fixed until last week. So please make sure, please double check, make sure your account should be good through end of June. Yeah, and then in June you could get a new code to get for another half a year. All right. So just remind yourself in June, get a new code, especially if you want to use this IBM Cloud for your capstone course. It's an option. Okay. So we want to see more questions. So that's what we're here for today. All right. So, and I remember that, well, some of you had questions, at least in session 9040, you had questions about the last assignment, ungraded exercises. Well, they were harder, but the reason is well, they were harder, and that's the reason they were ungraded. But some point in about a couple of weeks from now, we're gonna have a session where I'm gonna show you some advanced SQL, because SQL is gonna be part of the next assignment and assignment 3. So what the ungraded exercise you had for the last assignment, they set the stage for the SQL that you're gonna do in the next assignment, and you're gonna have some opportunity to review, okay? And personally, myself, I'm a go-to person at work at my full-time job when it comes to SQL. I do a lot of SQL, so it's totally fine with me if anybody from any session contacts me about the SQL questions for the next assignment. Next assignment, you will have the set of SQL exercises. Yes, there will be a set of more ungraded SQL exercises. And then for assignment 3, you will have to do the SQL graded. So just keep that in mind, okay? So, yeah. But if you need to discuss the answer, you know, let me know, okay? Okay, let me see. I have a question. Okay, apologies. It has already begun over, but can you explain why exactly we load data into the RDD and then parse? Well, because, well, the reason is, look, you want to run, you're using, how to explain it? You're using the pipeline, right? You're using the pipeline for this to run the logistic regression. And the algorithm has to take something in the form of person ID, which is identifier, and it has to take the person info, which is a delimited list of the variables, right? Hopefully it won't be necessary, but either of you can, what? Available all the weekend. Well, okay. Yes, we are going to be, both of us are going to be available over the weekend to answer questions. Yes, we always check the questions over the weekend. That's a good question, yes. But okay, anyways.
But do not assume that we'll be available as soon as we see a question, you know, we'll be kind of answering that. So make sure that you kind of give, you know, have enough time in between, because if you are asking question at 8, 9 Sunday 9 o'clock, then you know that may not be the time frame that we may be, you know, looking at the question. So whatever you want to start the assignment sooner, get into your questions answered sooner. I would
Yes.
not wait until the last minute. But
Yeah.
yes, to answer your question, we do look at questions, or you know, if there anything in the discussions or in the emails.
Yeah. So yeah, basically you have to do it in RDD, and then you have to convert it to the label document, person ID, person info, and label. And we have to use a pipeline, so that way it's kind of like looks through the data for you and might weed out the rows that repeat a lot, perhaps. And yeah, you have to take the RDD, and then you're gonna do this. You need to use you use the parsing function, right? It takes a line, it takes one line at a time from the RDD, and then it will do the label document for you. But it has to be the RDD in order to parse. Right, Ganesh? Did I say it right? You have to do the
That's
RDD.
correct.
Yes. Okay, so the main goal is to combine the important variables into a single string. Well, you're combining the the independent variables into the single string. But so you have ID, variables, and target format. Excellent. That's correct. That's correct. You have to combine it to the you have an ID, then you have the delimited list of the independent variables, and the label is going to be the dependent variable. That's correct. Yes, independent variables. That's correct. Not a problem. But I mean, I kind of understood what you meant. Yes, yes. Those are the independent variables. Because if you look at the pipeline steps, so basically here are the pipeline steps. So you have a 3 stages. The tokenizer is gonna take the person info, and it's gonna create something called the words, right? Then it is gonna be the hashing is gonna convert the words column into feature vectors, and then it's gonna apply the fit. Because what you could do is you could print out the output from each stage of the pipelines and see what's actually going on in there. I did not put the output in here because that's what you're gonna do in your homework assignment. I did not want to show the error. I did not want to show, sorry, the output. Because if I give you the output, that's gonna be cheating, right? Then here you split the data randomly. Okay, in this example, we're using the 80% and 2%. Oh, 20%. Sorry. Okay. Yes, you need the support. That's right. So yeah, basically, what I've been doing, and I've been a TA for a very long time, so I try to make myself available, especially on the weekends when assignment is due. I set aside more time, and every few hours I go in and check for questions. That's what I do, and I believe Linesh could confirm if I'm telling the truth, because long time ago Linesh was my student. Linesh, do you remember when I was your TA? Linesh?
Yes, I do.
So how was I in terms of response time?
No, it was pretty good. Absolutely. No doubt about that. But I just want everyone to also understand that, these questions, we kind of try to log in as many times as possible, and try to get to your questions. But there could be some time in between that you may not see a response back. So do want you to understand that, that we'll try our best to kind of provide the support, but it may not be like a chatbot kind of a support, right? So just understand that, and want you to kind of work on this as soon as possible, and not wait for Sunday 11 o'clock at night.
Yes. And next semester there will be a big change. Not sure if you are aware, but well, you might be. It will be communicated to students when registration starts. Most of you registered, I guess. The semesters are going to start on Wednesday, starting from the summer. The week is going to run from Wednesday through Tuesday. Okay, that's going to be the change, and it might involve a little bit of adjustments for some of you. But on the other hand, if something happens on Sunday night, right, something on BM side, and they're not in, then you have to use Monday and Tuesday to finish the assignment, right? If something happens beyond our control, well, we'll see how that goes. But there is a change coming for the summer. Okay, let me see. There's something in the chat. You understand? Okay, appreciate. Okay, yes. Yes, we are available. We make ourselves available, but no, but we would have a case when somebody was upset for not getting an answer within half an hour, something like that. Well, if for instance, if I'm online, I respond. But the TA is not online 24 hours a day, so something to keep in mind. But for me, I set aside the time on weekend to go online and I check questions every few hours. I do that, yes. And we are aware that this class requires, the students in this class need more TA support because we use a lot of applications, more applications than probably you used in any other class. So basically here, every like 3 weeks, you use something new. Like now you got probably comfortable with Spark and we have to switch gears next week. So we realize that. So that's the reason this class has 2 instructors, right? And a TA. The class is usually taught by 2 instructors, half semester, half semester. Yes. So let me see something here. Okay, are there requirements to convert any of the variables from the original type? Oh, this is an excellent question. This selection regarding converting the variables. Okay, well, you might need to do some conversions for your visualizations. Like if you do the diagram for the age variable, you probably want to convert it to numeric. But for the binary, no, not really. Nope. Right? I think you don't need to convert anything in here. Nope. You don't need to convert the continuous into binary. No. No. The answer is no. Okay? It will do it internally for you. It will do all the conversions for you that needs to be done. But no, you don't need. The only thing you need to do is that for that age variable, you have to convert it to a number before you do any of the histograms, etc. Or if you want to calculate the average, if you don't convert it to a number, it's going to do the ASCII value. It's going to look at the ASCII value instead of the actual values. Yes. Lenish, let me know if I missed something in the question. Hopefully I did not.
No, I don't think so.
Yes. Well, because, okay, good, good. No, I like questions. Actually, the more questions we get, the better it is because this will be recorded, right? And you get an explanation from 2 people. People explain things differently, right? So some of it you might see the review from your past courses. Some concepts such as training set and a test set, right? And one reason we do it is to avoid the overfitting, right? Remember the topic of overfitting from your past 2 semesters, I think. Yeah. So some of it is review. Okay. I believe you've done the logistic regression in data 630. Yeah. So this is kind of a review. And also here you're using Python, right? You're using Spark. That's another difference. Yeah. But the data set for part 2, it comes from, actually, it's part of one of the R packages. Lori, R package? Yes. It's part of the packages for logistic regression. Yeah. But don't say that this is the reason logistic regression is suitable. That's not gonna count. If you say something like, oh, it's suitable because it's part of the R package that is for regression, no, that's not gonna count as a justification. Okay. Yeah. So basically, yeah, the analysis, like which method do you think is gonna work and why? You want to explain the why part. You're not gonna say something like, oh, I would probably use naive Bayes method, and that's it. No, nope. You want to explain why. Well, that's what it means, the depth, and you want to apply the readings, etc. So it's not a short answer. You want to write like a paragraph, and also you want the paragraph to have substance. I hope you understand what I'm saying. You want the answer to have substance. Yeah. So let's see, do we have more questions?
I don't see any questions in the chat.
Yeah, but is there anything that you think you remember from last semester that any reasons people ran into issues? Because, well, I listed that I have seen.
Yeah, and I mentioned the other couple that I remember about the sequence of or the execution flow, making sure the variables and the libraries are all defined earlier before they are referenced. And secondly, as I said, like in case you lose connectivity or you not run the notebook for some time, but the browser window is still up, there may be a need to restart the kernel and start executing the file from the top. So I remember these two kind of came up quite frequently in the last few semesters.
Yeah, and also after editing the code, you need to run the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, because sometimes you may edit the code, but the variable definition is not actually what you changed, is not actually applied. You have to rerun the whole thing. Yeah, just do restart kernel, clear output, and do a fresh run. Okay. Yeah, we went over what to do and what not to do because, well, sometimes it's good to learn from mistakes that people did in the past semester. Yes. But yes, we do help during the weekend. Yes. So for those of you who received assistance already this semester, take a look at how long it took. It did not take that long, right? So, but still,
But only another word of caution here is folks who kind of looking for that weekend. Just a word of caution. Many a times the systems go under maintenance during the weekends. There are some maintenance windows that come up, so need to be careful with that as well, because all of a sudden you realize that you have put on everything for the weekend only to find out that the cloud environment is not available. So just be aware of that. And one of the reasons why I kind of always say, try to get it done and during mostly in the weekdays, because a lot of companies are using this cloud environment and you're using the same production environment as some of the companies are using. So the maintenance windows are mostly during the weekends. Okay.
mm,
That's something that we have also seen in the past semesters when students have tried to do more stuff in the weekends only to find out that the environment is not available.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So like do your hands-on part now and then and save all the output and then you do the write-up over the weekend perhaps. Yeah. Will the PowerPoint slides be available? Yes. Yes, I'll post them with the recording. Not a problem. Yes, I was going to post them anyhow. And the recording. Yes. Yeah, definitely. So after this session, right, well, it takes a little bit of time for the recording to actually convert on the server. Then I download it, put on YouTube, and then post. Okay, but there is a little bit of delay. It takes a little bit of time for recording to process, but lately it has not been that bad delay. Okay, usually they send it within an hour or something like that. Yeah. So later tonight, hopefully, you will see the recording and the slides. Okay, it will be in the announcement. Hopefully that will help. Yeah. So yeah, one thing that we are not gonna do is that we're not gonna write the code for you. We'll help you with the errors, but we're not gonna write the code for anybody. Do you agree, Linesh?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No. I'm serious. There've been cases when we had the student trying to get the TA to write the code for her. This is not how it works because our names are not gonna appear on the student's diploma. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we're gonna help, but we're not gonna do the work on somebody's behalf. This is not good, and this is disqualifying. Okay, just up front. Okay, any more questions? Any questions? Going once, going twice. I guess if there are no more questions, I'm gonna stop the recording and we're gonna call it a night. Oh, we have a question, right? Let's see. Oh, okay. You said most welcome, Matt. Most welcome. And thank you very much for joining. Those were excellent questions, and we love questions, of course. Okay. So, okay, I'm gonna stop. Oops, let me see more. Okay, most welcome, most welcome. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the recording. Let me see. Stop recording. Yeah.